you can't take a low code system and turn it into a production system without rolling up your sleeves and doing the actual work, whether it's security or data structures or tuning the interface design. The same thing is there are different design vocabularies with agents, to be sure, but you need to understand those concepts.
With Gen AI.
Yes.
So, what are some of the common themes you're seeing in the companies that you advise? How are they applying AI to their internal operations, and how are they positioning themselves in front of new clients that they're trying to acquire? Because it's always difficult to be the fresh company trying to get new clients with AI. But then you look at examples like Lovable that like went to 200 million ARR in 6 months, and then you're
Right.
like, well, how does that happen?
One of the key rules there is that human signal should always be valued over machine signal. And the example of this, and by the way, the tech isn't quite there yet. If you look at in the corporate world, if let's say you have a complex contract, a leasing agreement, and it's gone through thousands of drafts and hundreds of reviewers, those drafts look like the most important versions because they.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of What About AI Agents. Today with us we have Chris McNulty, who is CTO of Senior Zero Alliance. He was a director of product marketing at Microsoft, working on programs like SharePoint, and he has a vast experience in the space. He is also an advisory board member of the Seattle Tech Forum. And Chris, happy to have you on the show.
Great to be here, Philippe.
Excellent. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about what made you kind of leave Microsoft and start this new chapter of your life, and what you're working on now.
Sure. So I'm originally from the East Coast of the United States. Spent most of my life in Boston. Proud graduate of Boston College, where I got an MBA in finance. I've worked in technology for most of my career, starting in financial services, moving into consulting. Then I served as chief technology officer at Dell Software prior to joining Microsoft. And at Microsoft, I spent 10 years running the product teams responsible for things like SharePoint and Viva and parts of Copilot and OneDrive and Teams. And about a year ago, it really became obvious to me that it was time for me to do something different. And so I joined up with the rest of the folks at Synerger. We're a management consulting firm. We focus almost exclusively on business strategy consulting. Sometimes we're looking at technology. Sometimes we're looking at operations or marketing. Most of us are either ex-Microsoft or ex-Accenture. And AI is a big part of the work that we do and the work that our clients are looking for. And this is I'm going to now win the prize for being the billionth person to say, agentic AI this year. Obviously, that's very top of mind for people. And I think it's a term that's somewhat misunderstood. With my career focusing so much on education and speaking and writing, I love to be able to work with clients where we can provide some advice and guidance on how to think about agents.
So it's quite a big jump, let's say, from the product side to being a CTO, right? So I'm guessing there is a lot more tech that can be built. We have vibe coding and things like that. But what made you like embrace that jump and kind of go in? I know you were CTO at Dell, then you were product, now you're CTO again. What is the difference, and how are you finding the different hats, and how are they kind of suiting you in that sense?
Well, I've always been very out front in front of clients, going back to my consulting days. Prior to joining Microsoft, I was an MVP. So that's sort of in my bloodline to be out working with people, and whether those are clients and customers or whether they're folks internally. I've always been technical. If you go back at Dell, I was still doing some of the coding, although having the CTO do a little bit of coding can be a bottleneck. At Microsoft, I actually wrote 2 patents on AI. So I like being able to stay at the forefront of these areas, and where marketing for me is sort of a natural adjunct, since I'm already developing so much content and helping to steer the products and the launches. In my definition of marketing, and it's definitely honed by the way Microsoft sees it, marketing has primary business responsibility for shaping what the product is. for being able to listen to the market, bring those signals in, work with engineering, and then to repackage and bring those out into the public. So there's a continuity there, and it's this kind of services I love doing now with a lot of emerging ISV and SaaS startups.
No, this makes perfect sense. So it's kind of wearing both hats. I do the same, right?
Yeah.
So I tend to take over the product role very frequently, but I also end up being the one who writes a lot of the code for my company, and it is a bottleneck. But sometimes you have to also step in, and I enjoy it. I have fun writing code, but I know I shouldn't be doing it, and I should be educating the users and then my employees, right?
Yeah, I do think vibe coding is interesting, especially when it's transiting into the agent world and the way that certain agent systems can be quote unquote built using generative techniques. I think in the end, you still need to have a handle on what the fundamentals are. I know when I've vibe coded, um, when I vibe code something, an MCP server for HubSpot, say, um, eventually you get code and you need to debug it. And if vibe coding is great to describe what you want, but you don't have a whole mass of things you need to work through. And when something compiler won't start, error, what are you going to do? And I think that understanding of the mechanics of the process also become really important when we look at the world of agents, because agents in the hands of marketers become this revolutionary way of autonomously, self-intelligently figuring out what needs to be done, how to do it, and going to execute it. That reality is not here yet. And I think the result is a lot of folks are building systems which are really glorified chatbots. And I think you're going to see a lot of those initial experiments wind up being disappointing because people are expecting that level of autonomy. You don't get to that level of autonomy by using vibe coding to build a simple chatbot. It really requires understanding the continuity of where we've been from workflow through RPA to agentic AI. You really need to think through process management. And the key, what makes an agent work really well is having an understanding of what process needs to happen, what needs to branch, what are the conditions that need to go into it, and not expecting AI to sort all of that out for itself without code.
Yeah, I mean, wipe coding without having an IT background, I feel, and without having written code yourself and understanding how to build out the architecture and the edge cases, this is a death trap. And you have like, wasn't there like a founder recently who vibe coded some dating app and it got hacked and all the driver licenses of all these women that were on that app got
Right.
leaked? It was a big
Right.
thing because the guy just vibe coded the whole thing. He didn't know what he was doing. He just took a boot camp. So to your point, this is what that leads to.
I think it's analogous to what you've seen with low code systems that have popped up in the last 10 years. I think they can be a great way to prototype,
Right.
to get a proof of concept out together. You can't take a low code system and turn it into a production system without rolling up your sleeves and doing the actual work, whether it's security or data structures or tuning the interface design. The same thing is there are different design vocabularies with agents, to be sure, but you need to understand those concepts to be able to build an agent. And if you don't understand those concepts on one hand, and if you don't govern those concepts, you're in for a lot of disappointment.
Yeah, and ultimately, these agents, the biggest problem with them is that they're autonomous and they're 95% right.
Right.
But if that 5% ends up scaling, you have a lot of downstream issues because of those 5%.
Right.
And people expect the level of automation that you described, where everything is done for them. But the reality of it is, you're sitting there and talking to a terminal, getting it to fix things, and sometimes it works amazing, and sometimes it doesn't, and it's unpredictable. And this
Right.
degree of unpredictability is something that many people on the receiving end of the marketing for agents can't grasp just yet, because when people sell it to you, it sounds amazing.
Right. And I think people, confuse the LLM with the orchestration layer. And so
Yeah.
when you look at something like ChatGPT, regardless of the most recent announcements, it's hard to see how ChatGPT, the way the world understands it, is a really powerful place to do agents. It just isn't. Because agents, for the most part, are not going to be, not that there's no applicability in the consumer world, but ChatGPT is a consumer tool. Where you're going to see agents work is inside, I hate to say firewall, but inside the trust boundary. When you're working inside of a Google Workspace or M365 or whatever, or an Oracle or a Salesforce, wherever your line of business system is, that's where you really need to see agent power, because that's where you have the complexity and the variability where AI can sort of smooth out, accelerate, and amplify the ways that you need to automate those processes.
Yeah, and with some of the other people we speak with, agentic mode within the internal operations of the company is kind of considered one of the superpowers. As long as it gets built out and it's correct, you can automate now a lot more things that you could have done a year or 2 years ago. Now you have a lot of capabilities to automate a lot of low value tasks with these agents. The question is how to do it, and the question is how much time do you have on your hand to automate these tasks?
Right. And, when sort of, I hate to say classic Gen AI, people, you talk about garbage in, garbage out, the need to have governance around the content
Yeah.
that's in the system. The same thing is true in agentic AI. And I'm going to put it in Microsoft terms since I helped build these products. But if you look at something like Copilot Studio allows people to, quote unquote, build an agent using generative tools. Describe what you want this agent to do, and we'll go and we'll shell this out. Pushing that out into the hands of everyone in the company can be an interesting exercise in adoption, but it's a terrible approach to governance, because what you wind up with is an awful lot of hello world type agents where someone plays around with it, they build a bot, it's pretty low value or no value. They do something saying like, can you build an autonomous agent that every morning will email me the name of the last file I worked on yesterday. And they go and they build it, and they look at it and say, great, it works. And then what they don't do is go back and see, well, this is good, I should turn this down. Instead, they do something dumb like they write an mailbox rule, just delete that message. That thing just keeps spinning. Multiply that by 10,000, multiply that by 100,000. People get to the end of the year and they look at all of the, where do we get this $10 million operating bill from? Well, it's agents. What do they do? I don't know. Right? That scenario has played out, will continue to play out if you don't think through the governance, if you don't think through what are the business challenges you need to solve. First, what are those top 5? Second, which of those are well-suited agentic AI? Because not all of them may be, square peg, round hole. But choose the winners. Choose the places where you have an understood process that needs to be amplified, that adapts itself well to agentic technologies, that adapts itself well to those kinds of interfaces, to those kinds of autonomy. You'll be much more successful than turning it on and hoping for the best.
Yeah, to your point, having an agent email you something and then that's scaling up in the background and you don't even know what it's doing. It's a classic example of people giving powerful tools into the hands of people who don't understand them.
Right.
So in your MSP world, I'm assuming you work with a lot of companies that are trying to adopt generative AI and agentic technologies,
Mm-hmm.
and none of them have good governance. They don't understand how that works. They just, somebody at the board level said we need to have AI, and they went, oh, we're gonna implement AI, but how do we do it? So how do you advise them? Like, what is the starting point, and how does that process work to help find out those high impact and high value use cases?
We almost always bring it back to business strategy. During my decade at Microsoft, 2 or 3 times a week, someone from the Fortune 500 would come out to meet with me, to meet with some of the other execs, and we'd lay out the roadmap. And the CIOs would always ask me 2 questions, no matter which piece of technology we showed them. First thing, they would actually turn around to their team and say, do we own any of this yet? Yes or no. But then the next question is, which of these things that you showed me should I turn on first? And my answer was always, I can't tell you that. because I don't know enough about your business. Like, are you trying to bring new products out to your existing markets? Are you moving existing products into new markets? Are you moving into growth? Are you moving into cost management? Do you have security issues? Are you trying to acquire companies or develop? All of those bets that the business is making need to be understood. Once you have that context, then you can start to figure out, okay, what does the technology roadmap look like here? What does the AI roadmap look like here? What is the agent roadmap? It all comes back to that fundamental question of business strategy and business operations.
Mm. So let's say they identify so in your experience, what is the most the most expensive, the most impressive example that you've seen of implementation of agentic AI at scale? Because everybody's talking about it. I haven't heard like a concise answer about like agentic at scale. Like what did it do? Like what was the impact that like a large company could have achieved? Like have you seen a good example of it?
I've seen some decent examples. I don't think they're great yet, I'll be honest, but I've seen some decent examples. There's a investment management firm that we've done some work with. They're fairly large, and they have an agent that's built for their investment professionals that can be registered to look at certain sectors or securities and the rest and some conditions, and to have some measure of understanding the combination of signals from market data and news to be able to create a digest and an alert to notify the right people. So there is some independent research and capability that goes on. That's for something that is like crafted and bespoke. For declarative agents, the ones that I'm the most impressed with are anything that is founded on OpenAI's deep research model. And so that's ChatGPT Enterprise, the researcher agent in Microsoft, and there's a Google. But when you give it a problem and it knows to go out and figure out how to get to which websites it needs to go to, it'll go for 10 or 15 minutes, and you can see its line of reasoning like, oh, this is firewall, but I'm going to look at LinkedIn and see if someone posted the content elsewhere, and it goes. That stuff is super impressive for being able to do that kind of research. But again, early days, because those deep research agents, if they give you 5 answers, like here's the top 5 things you need to look at in this market sector. And you say, could you give me a report? Just give me the top 4 and add a 5th thing. They're not good at doing that second step reasoning yet. It'll come. The first step.
Multi-step. Yeah, like multi-step tool calling is what I'm also finding to be extremely, it's selectively good. It's
Yep.
not 100%. And like, even you look at the coding level, you have Cloud Code, it does things well, and then it just turns completely dumb. In terms of deep research, to your point, I've had incredible experience with deep research where it gave me this amazing insights, and then you go and you ask it something and it just gives you fluff. So
I had that experience today. There's a case study that was profiled in the Wall Street Journal about Hidden Valley Ranch, the food company, is using generative AI along with some of the creative agents to let their marketing teams ideate, to create brand new visuals and market collateral. It was in the Wall Street Journal, and it's firewalled. I don't have a Wall Street Journal subscription currently. So I went to Researcher, and it spent 10 minutes going around, and it found that same story had been reported on people's blogs and other things. So I was able to get all the details, but I loved watching its reasoning. Like, it's mentioned here, but someone then on LinkedIn posted it there, like, and shared it, and here's a newsletter piece, and it got all the content for me. Super impressive. And my second question about it was just it couldn't solve. So again, great first steps.
Great first step. It's amazing. It really is. So you also advise startups, right? Who
Yes.
are going down to market with Gen AI.
Yes.
So what are some of the common themes you're seeing in the companies that you advise? How are they applying AI to their internal operations? And how are they positioning themselves in front of new clients that they're trying to acquire? Because it's always difficult to be the fresh company trying to get new clients with AI. But then you look at examples like Lovable that like went to 100 million ARR in 6 months, and then you're
Right.
like, well, how does that happen?
Well, I mean, there's definitely a hype cycle, right? And I think that it's somewhat crested, but it's still, it's. Um, I think we've heard the first pong that you get when an airplane takes off. Like, we're at altitude, we're at 10,000 feet, but we still have 30,000 feet more to go. And we're not going to climb as quickly, but it's still going to be climbing. A lot of the companies that we work with are trying to differentiate because they're all chasing after the same thing. Too many of them are chasing after the identical thing, but there remains significant, call it blue water, call it white space, when you are looking at areas like integration and governance and management and reporting around AI. These are the disciplines that mature implementations need. And so people are going after a lot of those areas, being able to look at, use generative AI. There's an organization that's using Gen AI to help understand the regulatory environments for AI. How are they shifting, and how can we score this implementation, and where's the risk management for using AI in an organization, and that transitions into areas like insurance. How do you insure a company that takes dependency on Gen AI? Historically, we have financial models that know how to put a value on a silo full of corn or a manufacturing plant. How do you evaluate AI, put a price on an AI system so you know how to value it for insurance? There's lots of areas that are happening kind of on the outside where I think you're going to see a lot of powerful innovation coming. I also don't think we've scratched. I think the potential is going to be there. If you look at the protocols that have emerged in the past year, I wrote about a year ago, I predicted we need to have better ways, one, to let AI have a standard way for AI to talk to the external pools of data, and a standard way for agents to talk to each other. And it's a year later, and we have MCP and we have A to A. A to A is going to be really powerful in 2 or 3 years, and a lot of people are experimenting with it. The challenge right now is that having an agent talk to another agent is great once the other agent is good. There needs to be a flight to quality. For all the reasons we were talking about earlier, there are a lot of low-quality agents. It's okay. It's early. It's experimentation. Gartner published a finding last month that a lot of people, this is a glass half empty, glass half full thing. Gartner said that, they said only 60% of agentic AI experiments will still be in production in 5 years. And I'm like, that's an incredible success rate for an experimental technology. Once the agents, once you have a better mousetrap, once you have a great agent that, say, allows your purchasers to interrogate pricing, ship times, volumes, characteristics. Once you have a great agent for that, then it becomes really important and powerful to have supply chain or design tool agents being able to say, there's 3 ways we can design this, and is there a way that I can find out across all the suppliers? Once you have a matrix of high-quality agents, A to A is going to be really powerful. That's something that I think you're probably 2 years away from. This is going to be the year of building. Next year is going to be the year of agent quality, and then you can start hooking them up in really interesting scenarios.
Yeah, A to A is almost scary in a sense because you really are, as long as both of the agents are good and get their job done very well, you can have this autonomous orchestrations because now they can do anything that humans can do technically online. So I don't think there is yet a good implementation of A to A. MCP, I use it also on a regular basis. I think MCP is fine. I'm not a big fan of MCPs for coding. I know some people can't live without them, but I find that they slow things down for me rather than accelerate. And just because we have a lot of crappy MCPs out there,
Again, it's early technology. We need to get to the quality there. I have questions about how much when you add orchestration layers around things, sometimes you are degrading performance, which is okay. those things can be solved for. But it does, if you think about a modern organization, most modern organizations have 20, 30, 50 line of business systems. So a model that says Google Workspace is the center of my organization, or M365 is the center of my organization, I'm going to bring everything in to connect to it, isn't realistic, because then you have Salesforce, one cubicle over, or someone's got ServiceNow over there. And it's great to be able to bring other systems into yours, right? You have a multiplier effect. I'm going to take it way back in my career. Like, one of the worst things you could have done when you started seeing these large local area networks with 100,000 nodes on them is tell all the name servers and to start finding each other and resolving each other and doing everything else, because it's a mess. Everyone's a peer of everyone. Trying to build, if you start to do the math, it exponentiates if you have 50 systems all trying to talk to each other, each with a proprietary way of doing it. MCP is going to standardize that. In the long run, I can manage 49 graph connectors to bring data into Copilot. And then I have to repeat the process with a different technology for Salesforce. I have to repeat it with a different technology for SAP, and so on and so on. So getting to a standard where they can all talk to each other is, I think, the right approach. But the challenge with A to A is the number of things that we're trying to govern is greater. If you think about it, how many major line of business systems exist in the world? You can say that my database is different from yours, but you've got database systems, you have line of business systems. There's 400, 500. That's a known universe. Agents, you potentially have millions. I think Microsoft announced yesterday, this is not just agents, I think they've issued 1 trillion tokens for Gen AI in the past year.
Yeah.
The scale of what's going on is massive. These cross-industry initiatives, how you describe and discover across billions of agents or even millions, sometimes you get down to such a lowest common denominator that it's not that useful. Because all agents aren't doing the same things. And the unique characteristics of one don't necessarily render themselves well into making it a homogeneous discovery service. There's a reason why file formats still exist. Like, everything just didn't become XML 20 years ago, right? And I think you're going to see the same thing with agents. Not all agents are created equal. I think A to A is going to be really good at getting a known agent to talk to a known agent. Getting it to go to discover agents you don't know about to work with them. We'll see. I'm a skeptic of that one.
But that's extremely, extremely interesting. So it's almost like there needs to be like a discovery mechanism for agents to find each other. The agents have to be verticalized. So like insurance agent that knows all the good MCP tools it needs to call to complete its insurance tasks, plus an ability to discover additional agents to enhance itself. That is really, really, really powerful, I think, because then it's a complete A2A. You request it to find you the cheapest flight somewhere possible and get everything booked for you, and then it doesn't. But, the biggest problem that I always have is accountability, because in the end of the day, you are accountable for the outcome of these agents. So if an agent mess up bad, Microsoft is not responsible. The people who are selling you the agent are not responsible. You are always responsible, and you're always to blame.
Right. And if you think about the agent supplier, right? You build an agent. Let's take the example that you gave. In insurance, let's say you build an underwriting agent. So it takes the inputs, it asks, you're selling a policy to someone, it asks a couple of questions, it figures out, it checks, it's a yes, we can write this policy, and then it calls a document agent. If you built a document agent, great. If you're just going out and discovering some document agent and you don't like the quality of what you get back, who do you go to? Like if you have a purchasing relationship there, great. But if you're going to a generic socket that's out there, how do you know that you're doing something that's in a trusted, secure environment versus something that might be out there that's a honeypot agent that's trying to get data and saying, yes, we can build we'll build all the documents for you, but we're also, hoovering up your data so we can sell it to the dark web. Those are all questions that agent interoperation that we're going to need to solve. But that's cart before the horse. We need we need high quality initial agents before we worry about how they talk to each other.
Right. Yeah. To your point, yes, because then they'll have like a review agent, and I'm sure like Gartner will release its own, G2 will release its own review agent, and then the review agent will say, well, this is good. So then agent will participate in sort of a selection process of which agents to talk to, and they build out reviews and reputations. There's a whole bunch of slew of things that can be done to like standardize and verify that agent is compliant, that it has certification agent that checks if it has the right certifications. But this already goes into this already sounds very expensive from the token perspective, because like when you were saying trillion tokens, that's nothing. Think about production scale for this. How many trillions of tokens are we talking about? Like this is going to be ridiculous amount of.
So let's fast forward. Let's assume this is an agentic world. It's 5 years from now. You're one of the last holdouts who's still driving your own car. You're not in an autonomous vehicle, or maybe you're in an autonomous vehicle, and you're gonna get you pull up in front of the movie theater, and you tell your car to go find a parking space. And so it's going to talk to a parking service agent who is going to talk to all of the private lots who each have an agent to say, yes, I have space and here's this, to go figure what all of that is out. There's a lot of complexity. There's a lot of security that's out there. If I have 2 parking spots in front of my house, and if there's a concert down the street, maybe I build an agent to say, come park here. Sure, that might happen. I agree at some level with, I think it was Jack Welch may have said, in the future, every company becomes a software company. Every company needs an API. Now, in the future, every company needs an agent. I don't see a world where every person is building their own agent. I do see people who will, sell you an agent that becomes your digital twin. And there may be like 2 or 3 companies that become leaders in that. But that's not something that's going to happen at the consumer level. But it will happen more and more at the business level.
Well, yeah, it's almost like having a dating agent to automate like romance match discovery. I don't know what else, like shopping agent. That's hard because I guess somebody has to go and actually pick things up, unless they automate the delivery and packaging and packing, and then they send an autonomous truck and they deliver it, and then Tesla robot picks it up. So it could technically all be. So what do we do? Like, what are we going to be doing in 5 years, 10 years, once all of this is live?
Wondering why 10,000 packages from Amazon just showed up on my doorstep.
Imagine agent to agent, and you're responsible for it, and they're like, "We didn't know what happened, but you're responsible."
Right. It is the importance of human in the loop. It's hard to get through. Like, if you look at the way automation and AI are transforming the HR processes, the hiring processes. There's a little bit of an arms race, because most of the buy side, the companies who are hired, they're using AI a lot. And if, as an individual, it's hard to get to talk, it screens out and makes it almost impossible to get a human-to-human connection. You're seeing a little bit of an arms race. You've got these various startups and so forth that do automation, AI automation on the supply side. So you can essentially hire an agent to go comb your resume, look for matches, prepare applications to go talk to the hiring agent that lives inside iSIMS or Greenhouse or Oracle or what have you. Eventually, though, people have to talk to each other.
Well, yeah, it's just going to be a bunch of agents talking to each other because if they send an AI to talk to me, I can send an AI to talk to them. And then our AIs can talk and they can decide if my AI is a good fit for them.
So I ran an experiment about a month ago with one of the emerging agent technologies that focuses on LinkedIn automation for able to do lead generation. Because I also had a suspicion that I'd had it used on me. And so it uses a variant of Claude, and you can basically you can either feed it contacts or ask it to go find contacts in a certain profile, and you can take it out of the box generically, or you actually get better results if you tune the instructions you give it. And I was experimenting with it not just for Signature's business, but also for the companies that we advise and go to market. And so I fed it 100 leads, 50 of whom were ones I sourced, 50 of whom were ones that the product, Takaya, went and found on its own. And what I observed was it did a reasonably good job at reaching out on my behalf, establishing introductions, and once someone accepted the invite, opening a contact. We tested and tuned the problem. Again, the initial dialogue was quite good. I'd say half the time, the second or third response started to go off the rails. And so I had to step in and pause it and then get into an actual conversation. Of 100 contacts, I wound up having 5 live conversations, which is a pretty good yield. But, I still had to be the human in the loop. And, in every case, I was talking to people. And I was pretty transparent. I think ethically it's important to say, hey, I want to let you know, I'm doing this experiment. Yes, we're talking to you about your go-to-market strategies. We also do work in AI. And I would show them the whole chain, like, this is what I said it. This is what the AI did. Where do you think I stepped in? And they would be like, oh, the third response. That was you. I'm like, yes. But I want to ethically say, you're actually talking to me. We're actually on a phone call right now, just as you and I are, Philippe. It's an interesting approach. So agents won't take over the world. People and businesses with agents will.
Right. Yeah, to your point, Asians suck at personalization, and they've been trying to sell you those Asians personalizing emails. But my experience is that you can achieve some sort of level of personalization with Claude, but it's not going to be 100%. It will go off the rails. It will make stuff up.
Yeah.
And you have to be very specific with your prompt, where you forbid it to make stuff up, and then you just have to overprompt it, and then if it gets overprompted, it gives brain dead personalizations. So it's a very difficult thing to master, really.
It's impressive that it runs it all. I want to give this company props because I've given them some guidance and advice. But in one instance, it opened a conversation by noting that someone was a whiskey aficionado. And it said, which are some of your favorites? And then it started inventing whiskeys that I love, which, some are fine. I don't have a favorite. There's nothing out there in the digital world that I've ever written that says, I like this and not that. But it was like, I'm a big fan of Balwinnie. Where are you getting this from? And again, that's the place where I stepped in and said, hey, I'm using AI. For the record, I don't own any of this. I do have a bottle of Woodville in my cabinet. There's in the agentic world, we're going to need to be mindful of is similar to what you've seen discussed in the past month in the generative AI world, the concern about AI slop. And people are getting, again, there's an arms race between generating better and better content that makes it harder to tell if a person didn't do it. But still, innately, people are able to say, there's a lot of machine stuff out there, and people are rejecting that. And so there is a flight to quality. And in many ways, like a sale or a transaction, trying to get to a live conversation, two people sitting down face to face, that is becoming even more valuable in a world of generative AI. The flight to quality in generative AI is going to be echoed by that same flight to quality in the agentic world. And within that, again, needing to keep the human in the loop, because at the end, these are systems to amplify our activities and our knowledge and our communication, not to replace them.
This is exactly it, and I mean, people are tired of AI slop. And it used to be on Reddit, you would get all those posts where some guy would like really, really praise themselves with using some creative writing style post about how they had a problem which some tool miraculously solved. Then they would buy a bunch of commenters who would comment on it, and the whole post looked like AI generated slop. But now you can see people are calling it out. People start to call out people who write those long Twitter threads, and they're just saying like, "Stop with your AI slop. Nobody wants to read this."
Right. There's a pattern I've noticed on LinkedIn over the past 2 months, and I will call people out in it. With someone will post like a generic picture of Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk, whoever, like cooking dinner, and it's like these prompts will help you get hired, and followed by a whole bunch of Google training courses, and then there'll be 45 comments that are like, "This is amazing," or "I didn't know there was," or "PowerPoint is dead." Like fantastic, like it's almost, they're not identical, but they're basically the same comment over and over and over again. And I've seen people who I'm personally connected with supplying those things, and I'll call them out. Like, if you're a live person on this thread, please raise your hand.
It's so difficult to tell it apart, especially if they do it well. Like
Right.
I always notice those Y Combinator startups. They always post some of those posts talk about good tools, but some of them like they release the most generic crap ever, and then they have like hundreds of likes, millions of comments. They say, "Oh, this is so innovative," and I'm looking at this. This is generic crap.
Right.
Like, why is this generic crap getting this level of engagement on LinkedIn?
Well, look, 10 years ago, you'd hire an offshore team to go, boost your credibility by adding human authored comments. Now people are just
AI slop
en masse from AI. It's terrible.
Yeah, yeah. That's it. We live in the era of agent to agent and AI slop, and this is gonna grow at scale.
Yeah.
So that 1 trillion tokens is nothing. So we should prepare for more AI slop.
Right.
Yeah.
These new technologies, we will get things that are better than we could dream of. We will get things that are, worse.
Awful.
It's similar to social media.
Yeah.
Over the last 20 years, on one hand, social media lets me stay in touch with people from my hometown, 2,000 miles away. It also creates an echo chamber to amplify extremist views or hate and bullying in school-age children. And so, what we need to do as a society and as a technoculture, we need to develop the antibodies to these things to be able to have behaviors and systems that reject stuff that's low quality.
Agentic moderation. So it's agents moderating agents.
Mm-hmm.
And that's gonna be a hoot, especially if you start to write things yourself and they flag you. Then how do you prove that you're human, right? Like how do people know you're human at this point? Could be an AI avatar you're talking to. You don't know.
So, it's interesting. One of the compute problems I worked on at Microsoft, and to be honest, it's one that's it's going to be hard to implement without quantum because the calculations are immense once you get to a sufficiently large pool of people. But when you look at any graph-based signaling system to determine relevance, which usually is buried beneath the covers in an awful lot of AI systems, you need to determine which pieces of the substrate am I going to pull into this process. Most of that signaling is based on recency, primacy, and relevant signals. And they use semantics, but they also use trillions of signals that are assembled daily about who's talking to whom, where, and how, and all those. It's really powerful. One of the key rules there is that human signal should always be valued over machine signal. And the example of this, and by the way, the tech isn't quite there yet. If you look at in the corporate world, if let's say you have a complex contract, a leasing agreement, and it's gone through thousands of drafts and hundreds of reviewers. Those drafts look like the most important versions because they've had the most people looking at them and clicking and editing them and commenting them. The final signed copy may only have one or two people look at it, and it's got a record flag, but someone has said, this is the official version. That needs to be that determination that a human has said this is the official version should carry more weight than the interpretation of thousands of machine signals over here. And so again, like quality, human in the loop, the principles that you see in search relevance, just as we saw the disciplines of data structure, security, and workflow management matter for agents, the disciplines of search optimization and SEO, all of those things, again, parallel relevance for making sure we get quality AI out of the system. And the potential's there. We just need to make sure human signals take precedence.
Yeah, that's I think the biggest takeaway.
Yep.
Is that human in the loop is the only way, because agentic is scary. Yep. And in the end of the day, nobody signs off on agentic, but they all want it. Just nobody wants to be responsible if it messes up.
Yep.
So, Chris, I will let you leave us with another thought. Anything you want to talk about? Anything else you want to bring up as we wrap up?
I will say the best way to seek me out, there's two ways to seek me out online. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. You can go to my personal website, chrismcnulty.net. That can get you to my professional side of what I'm doing. Synerger, where I have a number of speaking engagements coming up through the rest of the year, probably a book. I'm not sure whether my next book is going to be on the marketing side or the AI side, but there'll be a book coming out later this year. And it also connects you to my personal creative world. I have an art show coming up this fall in Seattle for my photography, as well as some music, which may take me into next year. But it's always great to talk to people, whether it's from the world of technology or the human world. But Philippe, thank you for having me on. This has been wonderful. I'd love to stay in touch, and I'd love to check back with you in a year and see how much of what we talked about today has come to light and what's happened instead.
I'd love to have you back on, and I'd love to have this conversation with you again. It was an awesome conversation. Thank you, Chris.
Have a great day.
Have a great day.